Monica Roth stood at gate C-17 in Terminal 1. The boarding chime rang again, echoing off the walls. People checked their boarding passes and the clock, 6:42 a.m. She held her paper tight and stayed calm. Randall Jenkins, the airline manager, leaned over the gate podium. He looked at her frowning. "Madam, you can't board yet." "Step aside," he said sharply. Monica didn't move. She looked him straight in the eye and said quietly, "I am following the rules. I can board now." Jenkins waved his hand like it didn't matter. "Rules don't matter. Not here. Not now." People in line shifted nervously. Some looked away. Some watched closely. A TSA officer passed, the metal detector humming. Plastic bins clinked. The sound of a maintenance cart squeaked over the jet bridge. Outside, rain streaked the windows. The wingtip lights blinked faintly. Monica's hand hovered over her tablet. She was ready. Whatever she was about to show would change the whole gate. She took a deep breath. Her eyes stayed calm. But everyone near her could feel the tension building. Jenkins straightened his shoulders, his frown deepening. He tapped the podium like he owned the entire gate. "Miss Roth, I need you to follow my instructions. Now." Monica shook her head slowly. She didn't raise her voice. She kept it calm, measured. "I am not breaking any rules. I have the right to board now." He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Do you want to cause a scene? This could get messy." Monica's eyes didn't flinch. She could see the slight twitch in his jaw, the sweat forming at the edge of his hairline. She knew he wanted control. He wanted everyone watching to see her give in. A line of passengers waited behind her. Some whispered to each other. Some stared openly. A mother clutched her child, glancing nervously at the tense air. A man shifted his carry-on, unsure if he should step in. The scanner beeped again. The departure monitors flashed flight updates. The overhead paging crackled faintly, calling another gate. Monica glanced at the narrow jet bridge ahead, the maintenance cart parked just out of the way. Every sound, every movement reminded her that this was more than a simple boarding problem. She touched her tablet again. She had prepared for this moment, though no one at the airport knew it yet. What she would show could flip the power here. Jenkins straightened, trying to hide his unease. He barked at a nearby employee, "Make sure this is handled now." Monica stayed quiet. Her calm was sharp. She didn't need to shout. The rules, and her knowledge, were on her side. Monica took a slow breath and let her eyes sweep over the line of passengers. Most didn't know her. Most had no idea she had written the very rules Randall Jenkins was trying to ignore. But she didn't think about that now. She focused on staying steady. Earlier that morning, she had arrived at O'Hare hours before her flight. She had walked past the empty check-in counters in Terminal 2, tapped the tablet screens at the priority lane, and watched the branded carpet under her feet. Everything was routine, methodical. She liked routine. It kept her sharp. She had glanced at the TSA checkpoint as she went through, plastic bins stacked neatly, rubber floor mats pressed flat. She remembered the hum of the metal detectors, the quiet nod from an officer who didn't know her name but had noticed her calm confidence. Now, at gate C-17, the same calm carried her through the rising tension. Every detail mattered, the folding of her boarding pass, the angle of her tablet, the way her shoes hit the floor. She had practiced this quiet composure countless times in smaller situations, preparing for the bigger ones. Her mind flashed briefly to the corporate office downtown, the polished floors, the long oak tables, the thick policy binders. That world felt far away now, but it was connected. Every policy she wrote, every rule she enforced, had brought her to this moment. A few passengers shifted in line. Some whispered, "Is she really arguing?" Others stayed silent, sensing the pressure. Monica noticed them all. She didn't need their approval, but she knew they were watching. The maintenance cart squeaked again. Overhead, the paging system crackled. The narrow jet bridge stretched ahead, wet from the rain outside. Monica's hand hovered above her tablet. She was ready to show what she had, but she waited just a moment longer. Timing mattered. Her eyes met Randall Jenkins again. The man was trying to maintain control, but the twitch in his jaw betrayed him. Monica knew he didn't expect what was coming. Not yet. She let her fingers brush the tablet screen. Just a tap could change everything. Monica tapped the tablet lightly. The screen lit up, showing the airline policy in black and white. Every clause she had written was visible, every rule numbered and dated. Randall Jenkins' eyes narrowed as he read over her shoulder, though he tried to hide it. This doesn't matter right now," he said, his voice forced. "You're holding up boarding. That's what matters." Monica stayed calm. She remembered every meeting she had attended, every hour she had spent in the airline operations office. Laminated ID badges, whiteboards filled with delays, rotating chairs, it had all been part of learning the system, understanding how authority worked. And now, she knew it better than anyone here. A customer service desk attendant peeked through the plexiglass divider. A queue number display flickered nearby. The faint hiss of an espresso machine came from the VIP lounge, but the room felt silent. Everyone felt the weight of the moment. Jenkins tried again, his hand gripping the podium. "That's just how it's done. You don't get to question it." Monica shook her head slowly. She had heard that phrase 1,000 times. "I follow the rules. Not what someone says in the moment. The policy is clear." People in line shifted. Some looked between them, unsure who was right. Some whispered, "Why isn't she just moving?" Others stared, frozen, sensing a confrontation bigger than boarding. Outside, the rain streaked the jet bridge window. The wingtip lights blinked. Ground crew moved in the distance. The sound of a fuel truck passing on the tarmac added a low hum to the tension. Monica remembered all the times she had been ignored in offices, dismissed in hallways, told, "That's not your problem to fix." She had learned patience, strategy, and quiet strength. She had learned how to use knowledge as her weapon. She held her tablet steady, fingers ready. Every detail, every line of policy, had been prepared for this exact moment. The room seemed to shrink around them, the air thick with expectation. Jenkins took a deep breath. His authority felt fragile, though he wouldn't admit it. Monica could see it. And she knew that once she made her next move, nothing would be the same. Monica held the tablet steady, the screen angled so everyone at gate C-17 could see the policy she had written. The boarding chime had stopped. Silence filled the space, heavy and tense. Passengers shifted in line. They weren't part of the argument, but now they felt involved. They could see the manager trying to control the situation, the woman refusing to step aside, and the clear rules staring them in the face. A mother held her child closer. A businessman checked his watch, uneasy. People felt they were standing at the edge of something bigger than themselves. They weren't just spectators, they were witnesses. Jenkins' voice was low, strained. "Do you really think this changes anything? Rules aren't the same as what happens in real life." Monica didn't speak immediately. She let the quiet pressure do the work. Every person waiting felt it, that moral weight pressing down, forcing them to notice injustice in action. Finally, Monica spoke, calm and firm. "If the rules are ignored, people like me, who do the work, follow the policies, try to make the system fair, are pushed aside. Every single time." Her gaze swept over the passengers. "You see this. You hear this. You know what's happening. And you feel it too, the choice of watching and staying quiet, or noticing the truth." A subtle shift passed through the crowd. Their eyes met hers briefly, unspoken questions in their faces. They realized being neutral in this moment wasn't neutral at all. Monica's quiet stare, the tablet in her hands, and the manager's faltering composure made one thing clear: anyone watching had a decision to make. Could they ignore it? Or would they act, even in thought, and acknowledge who was right? Every small movement, every glance, was a test. And the test wasn't just hers, it was theirs too. Randall Jenkins shifted uncomfortably behind the gate podium. He had thought he controlled the situation. One passenger, one boarding problem, one simple confrontation, he could handle it. But he was wrong. Monica's calm presence had changed everything. She held the tablet at chest level, the policy clear and unambiguous. Every line she had written glowed under the fluorescent lighting. He could see it. Everyone could see it. Henry Lewis leaned back slightly, watching. Lillian Fraser and a few other attendants glanced at each other. The quiet authority Monica carried was starting to feel like an invisible weight pressing down on Jenkins. "You don't understand," he muttered, almost to himself. "She's just one passenger. This can't be a big deal." Monica didn't answer. She let the silence do the work. Every second he hesitated made his misread of the situation clearer. She didn't need to fight him with words. She had the rules, the evidence, and the room full of witnesses. The passengers shifted nervously, some whispering under their breath. Every glance toward Jenkins added pressure. His authority was cracking, and he didn't know how to stop it. Outside, the rain streaked across the jet bridge window. The wingtip lights blinked faintly. A fuel truck rumbled in the distance. The ambient hum of the airport, the creak of the maintenance cart, the beeping of the scanner, it all seemed louder, sharper, a reminder that the world was still moving, even as he faltered. He finally spoke, voice strained. Fine, show me again. Make it quick." Monica tapped the tablet, highlighting the key clause. Jenkins' eyes scanned the words, and for the first time, he understood the leverage she held. He realized she wasn't just a passenger, she was the authority. She had written the rules, and he had ignored them. A quiet tension passed through the gate. Lillian Fraser's hands rested lightly on the plexiglass divider. Henry Lewis' posture was relaxed, but his eyes were sharp. The passengers held their breath, sensing the shift. Jenkins swallowed hard. Every decision he made now carried weight beyond boarding schedules, reputation, authority, even possible consequences from higher management. Monica's calm didn't waver. Her quiet gaze, the tablet in her hands, the perfect timing of her movements, everything pressed down on him. He had misread her power, and now he was trapped in a moment where the truth could no longer be ignored. He opened his mouth again, hesitated, and then realized, the only way forward was to follow the rules. And he hated that he had come to that conclusion so publicly. Jenkins' hands tightened on the podium. He could feel every pair of eyes on him, the passengers, the attendants, Henry Lewis, Lillian Fraser. Even the faint hum of the metal detector behind them seemed louder, pressing against his nerves. Monica's calmness made the room shrink around him. She tapped the tablet again, bringing up another section of the policy. Each clause reinforced her argument. Each word reminded Jenkins of the authority he had ignored. He had misread her power, and now he was being forced to reckon with it. Monica's mind moved briefly to the airport offices downtown. She could picture the polished marble floors, the long oak conference tables, and the thick policy binders she had annotated for months. Every hour spent there, every line she had written, every internal debate she had fought through, it all led to this moment. The passengers leaned forward, some whispering softly, others silent but tense. The moral weight in the room was heavy. By standing up quietly, following the rules, Monica had placed everyone in a position where they could no longer be neutral. They couldn't ignore what they were seeing. Jenkins glanced at Henry Lewis. "What do you suggest we do here?" he asked, his voice tight. Henry didn't answer immediately. His eyes flicked to Monica, then back at Jenkins. Finally, he said, "We follow the rules. There's no other way to resolve this." Jenkins' face flushed. He wanted to argue, to assert control, but the silence pressed in. Every second he hesitated, every glance he avoided, reminded him he had been wrong. He had dismissed her. He had ignored the policy. And now the consequences were growing, not just for him, but for the airline's reputation. Monica took a slow breath, letting the tension linger. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't demand attention. She simply waited, allowing everyone in the gate area to feel the weight of what was unfolding. The subtle moral pressure extended to the passengers. They realized that watching quietly was not the same as being neutral. Their attention, their silence, was part of the moment. Even without speaking, they were implicated. Could they turn away? Could they pretend this didn't matter? The answer was no. A soft beep came from the boarding scanner. A maintenance cart squeaked on the jet bridge. Rain streaked the window, casting the wingtip lights in blurred, warning reflections. Each sound reminded Jenkins, and everyone watching, of the stakes. Monica's fingers hovered above the tablet, ready to bring up another section if needed. She had planned for this escalation. Every part of the system, the rules, the witnesses, the subtle pressure, was working in her favor. Finally, Jenkins exhaled, his shoulders sagging slightly. He realized that this confrontation had become more than a boarding issue. It was a test of accountability, of attention, of morality. And in that moment, Monica Roth had quietly forced everyone in the room to see who was right, and who had been wrong all along. By the time boarding finally resumed at gate C-17, the delay had crossed 21 minutes. That number mattered. At O'Hare, a delay of that length didn't just affect one plane. It triggered a chain reaction. Missed takeoff windows. Crew overtime. Fuel recalculations. Gate reassignment fees. Operations staff already knew the math. Henry Lewis quietly reviewed the figures on his tablet. One delayed narrow-body aircraft during morning peak hours cost the airline about $48,000 in direct operational losses, fuel burn, crew pay, gate usage, and air traffic rescheduling. But this wasn't just one delay. Because gate C-17 backed up two other departures, the ripple spread fast. 3 flights were affected within 40 minutes. By the time operations stabilized, internal estimates showed $310,000 in immediate operational losses across the terminal. Monica didn't speak. She stood quietly as the numbers stacked up. Then came the reputational damage. A passenger video had already gone live. It showed the confrontation. The manager's dismissal. Monica holding up the policy. Within an hour, it crossed 50,000 views. By noon, it would cross 1 million. The airline's crisis team would have to act. Henry knew the standard response cost. Customer compensation vouchers. PR consultants. Internal messaging. Executive review calls. Reputation recovery for discrimination-related incidents averaged $600,000 to $900,000, depending on media traction. This one was trending fast. Stephen Hawkins whispered, "Legal will flag this." He was right. Failure to follow written boarding policy exposed the airline to regulatory review and internal compliance audits. Even without a lawsuit, the legal review alone, outside counsel, internal investigation hours, compliance remediation, would exceed $250,000. By conservative estimates, the total impact was already climbing past $1.2 million. And it was still rising. Jenkins felt sick. He had treated Monica like a problem passenger. He hadn't checked the policy. He hadn't paused. He hadn't listened. Now the numbers told a story he couldn't escape. HR would open a formal misconduct review. Compliance would log a policy breach. Executive leadership would see his name attached to a seven-figure loss tied to one decision at one gate. Monica finally spoke, her voice calm, steady. "This didn't happen because I stood here," she said. "It happened because the rules were ignored. No anger. No pride. Just truth." Passengers listened. They understood now. This wasn't drama. This was consequence. Real money. Real damage. Real accountability. Jenkins stared at the podium. The airline logo reflected faintly on the floor. He knew what came next. Termination packets didn't arrive immediately, but they always arrived eventually. Monica walked down the jet bridge. Rain streaked the windows. The wing lights blinked. Behind her, the system corrected itself the only way it knew how, by removing the weak point. And everyone watching knew something else too. If she hadn't stood her ground, none of this would have happened. And if they had looked away, they would have helped hide it. Monica stepped onto the plane, her calmness leaving a quiet echo behind her. Gate C-17 was now empty, but the moral weight lingered. Every passenger had felt it. Every employee had felt it. And the consequences, financial, legal, reputational, were already climbing past $1.2 million. The camera pans in the minds of the passengers, the silent witnesses, the people who watched but did nothing. That could have been anyone. It could be anyone watching this now. Monica had followed the rules. She had stayed calm. She had refused to move. And because of that refusal, systems that ignored policy, ignored accountability, had been forced to pay attention. The viewers, anyone watching, felt that quiet moral pressure. Because the truth was simple, most systems only change when someone refuses to be invisible. Most rules only get enforced when someone stands firm, even when authority tries to ignore them. A mother in the line had held her child closer, a businessman had glanced nervously, a clerk had scribbled notes. They were all part of the moment. And now, anyone watching was being asked the same question: what would you have done? Monica's reflection lingered in the glass of the terminal doors as she walked toward her seat. The wet tarmac, the blinking wingtip lights, the distant hum of the fuel trucks, all of it felt ordinary. But ordinary had been broken because one person refused to yield. You, the viewer, might scroll past, might close the video, might look away. But by watching, you are here. You have seen the moment where accountability mattered. You have seen the cost of inaction, $1 million in losses, reputations shaken, authority corrected. And you know the truth. The subtle weight of complicity presses down quietly. Systems don't change by chance. They change because someone refuses to move. Someone notices. Someone acts. And now, because you saw it, you can't pretend it didn't happen. Even in silence, you are implicated. Even in thought, you have a choice: stay neutral, or let the moral weight settle and recognize what it took to force justice. The boarding pass scanner beeped faintly. Rain streaked the jet bridge window. The passengers, still inside the gate, were silent. Monica walked past, calm, unshaken, and unstoppable. And the question remained: if you were there, in that moment, would you have noticed, or would you have turned away? Monica settled into her seat, the soft hum of the engines beginning to vibrate under the floor. She glanced out the rain-streaked window, seeing O'Hare fade into the gray morning. She allowed herself a brief pause, not for triumph, but for observation. The ripple of the morning's events extended far beyond Gate C-17. In the airline's operations office, supervisors discussed protocol failures. Every report, every note, every photograph of the confrontation would be filed and analyzed. Patterns would be traced. Mistakes recorded. Systems evaluated. She had seen this before in her work, small acts of quiet resistance forcing large organizations to adapt. The patterns were clear: rules ignored until someone refused to comply, policies bypassed until someone enforced them. Systems only learned accountability when pressed, tested, confronted. Monica reflected on the survival techniques she had honed over years of working inside the airline. Calm observation. Strategic documentation. Knowing the exact moment to speak. Anticipating every authority move. She understood that survival wasn't about confrontation for its own sake, it was about preparation and quiet pressure. The passengers she had left behind were now returning to the flow of their day, unaware of the long-term shifts their silent witness had contributed to. Every minor observer carried a choice, to notice or to ignore. Systems only adapted because someone forced them to, because someone like Monica stood, held evidence, and refused to yield. Outside, the city of Chicago began to appear through the clouds. Downtown skyscrapers reflected soft light. The Chicago River glimmered faintly. Streets would be busy, workers crossing, life moving forward, but beneath the ordinary, lessons had been learned. Policies would be adjusted. Authority would be questioned more carefully. Decisions would be documented more thoroughly. Monica exhaled slowly. She knew the long-term work was invisible. Few would celebrate it. Few would even notice. But she also knew that patterns mattered. Quiet persistence, calm strength, and adherence to principle created lasting change. Systems learned through pressure, not apology. As the plane began taxiing toward the runway, she observed the city from above and realized the same truth applied everywhere: change never came from passive acceptance. It came from refusal, from insistence, and from those willing to bear the quiet weight of accountability. The cabin was quiet now. The engines hummed softly. Gate C-17 was empty. The passengers had gone, unaware of the quiet upheaval Monica Roth had forced through patience, calm authority, and unwavering adherence to policy. Yet the story didn't end there, it continued in every reflection, every conversation, and every moral choice made by those who had witnessed it, including you. Monica's steady presence had exposed arrogance, revealed systemic cracks, and reminded everyone that unchecked power carried consequences. She had not shouted. She had not demanded recognition. She had simply stood firm, and the ripple of accountability stretched beyond the gate, through the terminal, and into corporate offices. If you are still watching, it means you didn't look away. You didn't scroll past. You stayed in the room. You felt the tension, sat with the discomfort, and allowed yourself to be implicated in what unfolded. That choice, staying engaged, is the quiet moral victory this story offers. Every second you spent here, every thought, every mental reckoning, is your participation in the story's justice. And now comes the responsibility, not to reward, but to deepen your awareness. To expand your moral engagement. To join the community of watchers who refuse to normalize inaction. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to join Black Uncut Stories. Here, stories are not told to entertain. They are told to illuminate, to awaken, and to preempt you from ignoring the patterns of systemic injustice. Each story acts as a mirror, reflecting flawed systems, human arrogance, and the quiet victories of those who refuse to compromise integrity. Engage. Share your thoughts in the comments. Discuss what you would have done if you were in that cabin. Reflect on the patterns you see in your workplace, in public spaces, and in your own life. This is how moral accountability spreads, not with noise, but through acknowledgement, conversation, and conscious observation. Subscribing is not a passive act. It is a commitment, to remain aware, to stay vigilant, to honor the moral contract that Monica Roth established. When you subscribe to Black Uncut Stories, you are saying, I will not look away. I will not normalize arrogance. I will see, reflect, and act where I can. The story may have ended in the cabin, but it continues in the ripple effects, in the recalibration of systems, and in every reflection you carry forward. Each story you watch, each discussion you spark, makes you part of the silent but powerful accountability network that keeps these lessons alive. Do not just leave. Stay engaged. Comment. Share. Reflect. Subscribe. The next story is already being told, and the moral contract is yours to honor. It is your turn to carry the ripple forward.